Hello everyone, welcome to the second part of the Mandarin Collar Jumpsuit making process. Here you can see me pinning together the front and the back pieces of the collar and sewing them together. Once this is done, I will be ironing really flat both pieces of the collar. Then I will be trimming the excess of seam allowance, as well as notching the seam allowance on the curve so that the seam can stay flat and smooth. Then I flip the collar inside out. I use my scissors to push the seam and shape the collar. Next step is attaching the collar to the bodice. So here we are on curves which contradict each other. I must be careful to go very slow to avoid bunching and creasing of the fabric. I have to do it twice because there are two pieces for the collar. I showed you in part 1 how I make the button loops. Now it's time to fix them on the bodice before sewing the facing. As you can see, I use my measurement tape to place some pins every 5 centimeters. Then you will see I will put in place the loops. I have to use quite a lot of pin for that, and it's quite time consuming. There are 9 buttons, so I need to put in place 9 button loops. Now I basted the button loop all the way down the curve of the front bodice. The next step is attaching the facing to the bodice. In part 1, I have showed you that I was applying interfacing on those parts. I have to align the facing along the entire neckline and down the front curve and pin in place. The collar pieces and the button loops will be sandwiched between these two layers. The facing pieces are always cut to match the outside piece to provide a neat finish as well as holding the structure of the garment. Once again, around the neckline, we are on curves which contradict each other. So then again, I have to go slow and be careful to keep the fabric flat to avoid any bunching and creasing. Once the sewing is done, I trim the excess of the seam allowance, flip it over, pull the button loops, and as you can see, it's amazing and wonderful. The bodice is getting in shape. Here, I'm working on the other side of the bodice. After sewing the front bodice with its matching interfacing, I trim the excess of seam allowance, notch the curve, and flip it over. I also need to do what we call understitching. This is a technique used to stop the facing from peeking out from the inside of the garment. This will add to a neat finish. For this jumpsuit, the customer wanted a sleeveless option, so here I am sewing some black binding around the armhole. I will sew them together, serger the edge to avoid fraying, iron flat, and then top stitching. To put your jumpsuit on and off, you actually don't need to use the front buttons, unless you want to, of course. There is a zipper at the back of the jumpsuit that you see me right now pinning in place, and then I will be sewing it. here we are, the zipper is sewn and the front bodice is almost finished. I just need to sew the button, but I will be doing it in part 4 of this video.